Rebonjour, bonsoir, c'est de nouveau KO pour la suite du guide du débutant. Et c'est parti. Bien ce décor.
To me, this environment is meant to represent Coda's puzzle, with the two doors on either side and a dark transitional space between.
Bon, c'est évident que ça allait se fermer. Ah, il y a le père qui s'est renversé. Je vais savoir interagir en cliquant partout, mais oh.
You'll notice that the quality of the art is a step up from previous games, including this new and improved chat system, which he started using from this point on. From here on out, he begins putting much more effort into the visual polish of his work, and this particular game took 2 months to create as a result.
Non, je me D'accord, mais d'abord je veux voir le reste de l'appartement. La musique est cool. Un peu étrange pour le moment. 2 zombies. Oh. J'aime beaucoup cette musique. Si ça c'est aussi rapide.
After the intense set of prison games, this house cleaning level almost feels like cleansing. It's the moment after a particularly difficult or traumatic experience where you just need to let it sit and digest inside of you, and eventually cohere into something meaningful. I know that Coda really liked this game. Of all of his work, actually, this was the only one that he called me up to ask me to come over and look at it. This was during a period of a few months where he was like grossly happy all the time, just walked around with a constant smile on his face.
Alors, voyons ça. Quelqu'un a l'image de son âme. C'est joli, je trouve. Ah, il y en a un ou deux, trois. Qu'est-ce qu'on va répondre? Votez maintenant par SMS! Cette musique me relaxe, de Dieu. Un peu ce cas parce que je fais ces 4 trucs tout le temps, mais bon.
I'm glad he made this. I'm glad he found some peace.
Réponse.
But, of course, it can't last. The music stops, your companion is gone, it's time to leave. The door at the top of the hill is now open as well. Again, you can't stay in the dark space for too long. You just can't. You have to keep moving. It's how you stay alive.
Ah, dommage, c'est bien quand même. Maison en verre, ça c'est étrange. C'est comme ça. Alors, si j'ai bien compris, c'est comme ça qu'il visualise son énigme là avec les deux portes. Enfin, l'espacement entre les deux. Et de lampadaire. C'est donc la fin.
Which is the whole point of the puzzle doors, right? That sooner or later you have to pick up and move. I really thought that was the point of it. This one gets a bit goofy.
Pas bouger.
About halfway through the game, the perspective shifts.
Oh.
And you play as the teacher. And suddenly, you discover that your teacher is just as bigoted and afraid as you are. Oh, and also you can move around the classroom now.
Good. Merci pour l'info. Alors... alors sécuriser, je sais pas si protège et répondre à la 2. Ah. On va mettre la 1. Oui, une couleur différente. J'aime bien l'effet au fond. Ah, je peux pas aller plus loin que ça. Des cris d'hurlement et autres, c'est pas rassurant. Pourquoi c'est incoloré? C'est ce qui me perturbe. Mais c'est quoi ces textes? Bon, je vais continuer sur le jaune pour le moment, on va bien voir. On va mettre la 2 cette fois-ci. Ah. Est-ce que ça avance? Lampadaire là-bas. Je sais pas. On va le mettre à 3.
I felt pretty hard for this one. I feel like it's one of the most relatable experiences that you can have. To assume that some other person is perfect and totally fulfilled in every way, and completely miss all of the little flaws that make them painfully human. I think about this game a lot these days.
J'ai pas tout compris, je vous avouerai, pas compris grand chose sur ce truc là. Ah.
This one took a lot longer than all the others for Coda to make. It was 4 months between this and the last one. That's twice as long as it took him to make any other game before this, and it's not like it's particularly complex, so I remember I found that a little strange at the time.
Non, j'ai trouvé. Scène. Il y a un théâtre. Ouais, c'est ça. Je suppose que ça va s'allumer au milieu. Ça m'a surpris. Oh là là. J'ai va ton 06. Hmm. 3. Alors, qu'est-ce que je vais pouvoir dire? Allez, on va mettre à 3 vu qu'il veut de quelque chose qu'on réponde. Tu m'emmerdes. Il y a un lampadaire qui est là. Oh. D'accord.
The game ends with this eerie premonition of what's going to happen next in Coda's life. The solution to social anxiety, to fears of having to perform and having to chase success, the answer for Coda is to withdraw, to hide himself away. Which is what leads to scenarios like the stairs that slowed you down several games ago, where it just becomes harder and harder to access Coda's inner landscape because he keeps retreating. He just keeps backing away from possible connections to anyone other than himself. And to be honest, I didn't consider it very helpful when I first played this game. You know, it looked to me like he was trying to justify the idea of just disconnecting yourself from the world. And that wasn't what I wanted for him or for his games. Because I feel like a lot of his games are inviting me to connect with this person, to bring him closer. But what can you do? After this, Coda went off and took another 5 months to make a new game.
Oh oui, ça prend vite. Gardez les yeux fermés. Je garde les yeux ouverts, hein, si on n'est pas intérêt en fait. Oh, Whisper. Et on rentre dans une porte.
You should probably open your eyes if you haven't already. It's pretty much impossible to solve otherwise. And there is a solution, by the way.
Les boucliers. Est-ce que c'est ça? C'est là-dedans. D'accord, j'arrive là. Et tout, c'est une lampadaire. Vérité. On va dire la 2.
Like I said, I was getting concerned. First off, he's never been this explicit in his work about exactly what he's thinking. So where's that coming from? But then even weirder, his work has potentially stopped being an outlet for him. Not like he's having trouble iterating on ideas, but he literally just can't think of new ideas anymore. And in person, he was being a lot more distant than usual. Like, you know how sometimes a person will just deflect anything that you say in order to keep themselves disconnected all the time? It was that kind of thing. Here was the point in my relationship with Coda where I really started to wonder if he needed my help in some way. His games are going to get more desperate from here on out. After this game, it's almost 6 months before he finishes something new.
Allez hop. Ah. Je suppose que si je fais le 3, le personnage va apparaître. Ah non. Le clé est disparu. Tout petit peu, oui. Merde, je me suis coincé. J'ai bugué le jeu. Mais merde. Bon bah ellipse. Autant que je corrige. Et re. Voilà, du coup on va changer la réponse. Hop. Bon, ne pas oublier qu'il faut avancer. Du coup ça range l'épisode mais c'est pas grave. Yo. Voilà. Je me demande si réponse on a sur
If
quelque
the
chose.
last game featured Coda talking explicitly about his creative frustrations, this one turns it up to 11. Now, put yourself in my shoes playing this. Here's a friend whose work is exhibiting signs of struggle, frustration, anxiety, depression, even. And yet, still, he keeps making games. He keeps throwing himself into the grinder even when he clearly doesn't have the energy for it anymore. Why? What is it for? Because from my perspective at the time and just what I knew of him, this was a result of how isolated he was. He was in his own little bubble, just sitting at his computer all day, not really showing these games to anyone, not releasing them onto the internet, and so he didn't have anyone outside of himself to connect with. He had no outlet to ground himself on.
Je parle pas grand chose, c'est très captivant.
You can't talk yourself out of loneliness. It doesn't work that way. You can't be the one writing both the questions and the answers. Then there's no movement. Then there's no circulation. If all of your anxieties are being channeled into your work, then if the work ever fails, you have no backup and you're just going to crash. Seeing this game at the time that he made it, it looked really unhealthy to me.
Je suis d'accord là-dessus.
I was watching him do this to himself, and I hated it. I hated seeing him so trapped. It's like video games are not worth this amount of suffering. This is someone I really cared about. And I used to get so much joy out of seeing him create. For him to suddenly become angry and frustrated like this, it was the worst thing for me.
Plus tu vois derrière, c'est pas ce qu'il y a de mieux. Hein. Désolé pour le moral. Avec des murs en fait, n'est-ce pas?
This is what I felt at the time. I don't know how else to explain it. I wanted it to stop more than anything. I had never felt so rotten. I needed more than I had ever needed anything for this to stop. But it didn't stop. After finishing this one, Coda takes another 7 months and comes up with a new game.
J'aimerais se faire un break après tout ça, je crois. C'est assez étrange et très épuisant. Psychologiquement parlant. Alors, c'est très particulier comme jeu. C'est comme ça qu'il se voit.
And of course, it's the machine.
Qu'est-ce que je vais pouvoir répondre? C'est bizarre tous ces bruits. Je dirais la 2 cette fois-ci. Ces blocs en fait là. C'est franchement étrange. Mais pas rassurant du tout. Et franchement, j'aime pas tellement tout des questions comme ça. C'est que c'est le jeu, mais bon. C'est bizarre. Disciple, non merci. Ok, qu'est-ce qui se passe? La 2. Super, deux solutions à la con. Je peux pas dire autre chose. Je peux me bouger. Une détruire la création de la machine qui représente l'auteur. D'accord. C'est vrai, et où? Oui, quand même. Je suis pas sur le sol. Est-ce que je peux avancer par ici? Mur blanc. Ok.
So now the work is becoming self-destructive. And I'll tell you, at the time that I first played this game, shortly after he made it, here's what I'm thinking to myself. I'm thinking that Code is stuck in his own head, and that it's having a very negative effect on him, and that all he needs to do is just start showing his work to people, to get some actual feedback on his games. It might get him out of isolation. And so, as I'm thinking this, I realize that I could be the one to initiate it. Because it would never occur to Coda to start actively soliciting feedback, so what if I did it for him? If he could see the difference it would make to have more actual conversations with other human beings, would that bring him out of his mental spiral? Would it give him confidence in himself? Would it bring meaning back into his work?
Ok, c'est franchement étrange comme... Oh.
So I started showing Coda's work to people. I took this one, and the islands which you just played, the theater, the notes, the house cleaning game, and some of the prison escape games. I brought them to people that I knew and trusted. I asked their opinions. And the great part is that they really loved his games. You know, the point of it all is just to give him some external reference point, but they genuinely loved his work. There was nothing for him to be afraid of.
Ça réagit pas. Je peux juste tirer.
Can you see why I felt like this was the right thing to do? Because it's the thing that I always feel like I need, to be told that my work is good, that I am good. When someone really connects with a thing that I've made, when they see themselves purely in my work, there's nothing that feels better. And I got to give that very same feeling to my friend. I did something... I really felt like I'd done something good, like I was a good person. I felt like there was a friend who was in trouble and was unhappy and maybe didn't like themselves, and I could fix it. If I could give him this gift, maybe I could fix the problem. When they told me how much they enjoyed his games, it was the best feeling. It was the absolute best feeling. It made me feel so happy. So beautifully, beautifully happy. So anyway, Coda finishes this game, and then really he just kind of takes off for a while. So this is June of 2011, and I didn't hear anything from him for several weeks, I guess. And so out of nowhere, one day I get an email, and it's got a private link to a new game of Coda's. This one is called The Tower, and to my knowledge, it's the last game that Coda ever made. So let's take a look. And this is where I have trouble saying anything meaningful about Coda's work. Because more than anything else, the tower just feels distant. It feels like it's trying to distance itself from the world. It's a very cold game.
vraiment très étrange tout ça.
This room actually has a maze in it.
Oh.
Except that all the walls of the maze are invisible. And then every time you touch one of the walls, there's this awful flashing and noise, so the experience is really miserable. The game goes beyond not being meant to be played, it actually seems to despise the player for trying to play it at all. But I do want to show you the rest of the levels, so when you're ready to continue, press enter and I'll put a bridge over the maze.
Je ne sais pas ce que vous en pensez, c'est très étrange. D'ailleurs, je viens de voir que ça fait un bout de temps que j'ai pas fait un épisode, donc on se retrouve pour l'épisode prochain, peut-être le dernier, je ne sais pas. C'est donc KO pour le guide du débutant, The Beginner Guide. A très bientôt, et je crois que je vais poser un petit peu mon cerveau 2 secondes avant de faire la suite. Ah, ciao tout le monde.